part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hi, everybody. It's John Tellage from the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast. Be sure to hop on with us to follow all the dramatic developments of the reigning American League Central Division champions. From game analysis to interviews to keeping tabs on who could be the next breakout star. We'll have that and much, much more right here. It's the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe here and join the fun.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
What's good, Breakers? That sound means it's time for Cavs on the Break NBA podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm your host, Chase Smith, and with me, the NBA writer for hoopswire.com. He's our Cavs insider, national NBA writer and insider. I added that little tidbit, Sam. Sam, Amico, Sam, what's good, baby?
Oh, not much. Ready for some playoff basketball in Cleveland for the first time since before I had gray hair when LeBron James is on the team.
Also here with us, he is a sports anchor at Fox 8, host of the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast right here at P3. Ladies and gentlemen, a man who needs no introduction, John Sabol. John, it is so good to see you.
Chase, Samuel, what is good? You know, Sam, I think you did have gray hair last time the Cavs were in the playoffs. Don't lie.
I may have. I probably didn't slouch as badly as I do these days. Not bent over as back then.
Your mother would
back
not
then
like
I could still stick straight.
Your mother would not like your posture, but you know what? This is an NBA podcast, so we're all about basketball, and that's what we're going to talk about. Isn't that right, Chase?
That's right. Well, if I could ask you, Sam, to just worsen your posture for the next 30 minutes or so, I need you to get real nice and close to that computer so we can hear you.
How about now?
That is, if you could do that, that would be great. JIA is not with us tonight. He is under the weather. Feel better, Jay. Shouts to Zach for checking this podcast out, man, all season long, just doing his job. And hey, we have reached the end of the season. I just want to share a few things. This is the season where we at Cavs on the Break, the most episodes that we've ever recorded and produced and put out. So good job by both of you guys. It's just an incredible season, and it's not over. We get to do this longer, but I just wanted to say regular season, John, Sam, Jeremy, thank you all so much for sticking this out. It's 82 games. It's a long season.
It didn't seem like it was that long. Did it fly by for you guys? I feel like we were just doing our preseason preview in the fall. Man, where'd the time go?
I was thinking that the other day that I thought, why has this season gone so fast? I don't know why.
I think we all know why. It's because you love us, Sam.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want this to end. We'll just have to keep going through the summer.
We release an episode every week, pretty much up until the beginning of February, and then we went to almost every week, bi-weekly. Our last episode, Tim, the great Tim Alcorn, what an incredible time. I will say this, though. I love Tim, friend of the pod. He laughed at my face when I asked if we could get 53 wins. And guys, we got pretty darn close. The Cavs ended up 51-31, fourth in the East, 4 games ahead of the Knicks, home court, first round. Listen, we are going to be recording a huge Knicks playoff preview pod on Thursday night. It'll be ready for you on Friday, leading up to the game over the weekend. So be on the lookout for that. And then our goal is to do a episode after every playoff game. We did this. Sam, me and you actually did this way back when. Do you remember when we did this?
I remember listening
our first
to that.
Year together.
Yep, it was. It was just me and you. We did a playoff. We called it a playoff press. And after every game, we just get together and talk. And so no matter if there's a 1 day rest or 2, we're going to hop on the mic after the game and talk about it. So we're going to be releasing a lot of episodes here the next, hopefully, 2 months leading into the summer. But I want to spend this moment now just recapping the season and talking about the Cavs. Sam, when you look back at the 23-24 season, what are some takeaways that you're going to have for this young Cavs team?
The first takeaway for me would be how seamlessly Donovan Mitchell fit, because I thought it was going to be a little bit of an adjustment, not, because the Cavs had a young core with Garland and Mobley and Jared Allen, and then you add such a dynamic player to that. I thought there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. They might be playing around 500 right away and then get better. But the fact that they lost Darius Garland in the first game, lost the first game, and then won 8 straight.
The Raptors.
That I thought that was pretty. Then I thought, this team not only doesn't need adjustment, but it looks like this is sustainable. One of the other big things for me too, and I know this is crazy because the Lakers weren't very good at the time, but the fact that they finally swept LeBron James, I think that was, to me, was a big mental hurdle when they would go into those games, especially the young guys like Garland and Mobley and Okoro and even Allen. I think that was, to me, I'm like, the fact that they beat them in LA and were in control for most of the fourth quarter of that game, and then they beat them in Cleveland, same thing, in control for most of the fourth quarter. To me, that was a big thing, because I'm like, in Cleveland, that's a big mental hurdle for the franchise. And the fact that they made light work for the most part of the Lakers, I just thought, now granted, at the time the Lakers were really struggling. It wasn't a huge deal, but I do think getting over that mental hurdle to me showed me, okay, this team is ready for challenges.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably my big takeaway. Then, and the other thing, I don't want to steal John's thunder here, but the defense to me was a big surprise. I didn't expect them to be near the top or at the top of the league all season with such a young core, because usually young cores, that's the area they struggle. So I thought the defense was a very pleasant surprise the way they played all season.
Yeah. John, what are some of your takeaways from this season? You look back, like, what's the couple things you're going to remember?
Well, Sam stole all my thunder, and I really can't say anything else other than what he did.
Yeah, I'm good at that. I just want to keep Sabol quiet.
There you go. Well, I agree with everything that Sam said. I think the biggest thing for me is, the Cavs were missing a piece, and that was a Donovan Mitchell. And man, did he fit in immediately. 8-1 right out of the break. Cavs got all the eyes on them from the NBA that first month of the season in October. And, they hit a couple bumps in the road after, winning 8 out of their first 9 games. They lost 5 in a row, but then they started another winning streak. And then kind of after the first of the year, kind of were back and forth, but they were able to, ride the wave a little bit, weather the storm, so to speak. And, Mitchell was that guy. I remember when we recorded a pod, guys, earlier in the season, who would be the guy that would take the shot? Would Darius Garland defer to Donovan Mitchell? And 8 out of 10 times, it was Donovan Mitchell for the most part. And there was never that one instance where you're like, okay, who's going to care about that? His ego is going to get in the way. And it didn't happen. So it's a testament to Donovan and Darius and the rest of the team, and also Kobe Altman, for getting a player in here of Mitchell's ilk that has the maturity and the selflessness to fit in right away and contribute. And guys, man, that 71 performance that he had against Chicago in that game was just incredible. And who would have thought Damian Lillard would tie that record, a few weeks later?
Right.
8th overall best seasons, win-loss record-wise in Cavaliers history. You're in the playoffs for the first time in 5 years. And you're in the playoffs for the first time without a guy by the name of LeBron James on your roster since the late 90s, 97, when Sean Kemp was on that team. So it's a big moment. They hit over 50 wins. They didn't get to your 53 chase, but they got 51. And really, they didn't need to, because they had a comfortable spot in that 4th seed.
Right.
But they hit every single expectation in the regular season, I think, that they wanted, what we kind of expected. And so now let's see what they can do in this first round series, which we'll get into.
John, I'm so glad you mentioned how the Cavs were trying to find that last second shooter. And we talked about it on the podcast. I don't want to take anything away from Darius Garland or the unselfishness that he's shown or the team chemistry that they've shown throughout the season. But I think it's pretty serendipitous when he's out for the first 10 games and they have close games against Boston where D Mitch is hitting those big shots and kind of solves some of those at that time, Garland wasn't on the court, so who else is going to take it? No one. But when he did come back, it was like, oh, this guy, 1, isn't afraid, 2, makes the shots, and 3, kind of solved that, I feel like, kind of question for them naturally, which is very, very nice. I'm really glad you mentioned, no one mentioned Evan Mobley and his development and to what he could, we'll talk about this after the break, possibly Defensive Player of the Year, Evan Mobley.
Well, it's funny you say that. I thought we'd kind of get into that, but I'll say this. Mobley's start to the season was a little less than ideal.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say the second half, he turned the corner. He had a little sophomore slump, like he hit that rookie wall that Sam always liked to talk about in the second half of last season. And, the last 2 months really turned it up.
Yeah.
We saw that at a consistent clip, and it's great. And he did maybe still not get to that level we thought he would get to, and he may not get to there yet. And he will eventually. But if you think about where he was in the fall versus where he is now, man, that's a good point, Chase. I mean, he did take that next level. It took a little time, but the sky for that young man is still the limit, man. He has still got a long way to go, but he's going to be dangerous, and he's becoming dangerous too.
Yeah, and Sam, I think you were hitting with that when you talked about the team defense, because no doubt about it, the Cavs are the best defensive team in the NBA. Every metric leads them to the number 1 team in the NBA, and you don't have that without Jarrett Allen, without Evan Mobley.
Right. I mean, that's where it all starts and ends with those two. The way they've and Okoro, of course.
I almost threw him in there. I didn't. You did. I didn't do it. I left him out. You put him in there, Sam Amico. You put him in there. That wasn't me.
Well, and even LeVert and Mitchell, and Garland's not much of a defender, but the way that they've defended as a team and driving people into Mobley and Allen, and Mobley and Allen taking it from there. They just having those two guys in Allen and Mobley really disrupts everything that everybody else is trying to do most nights. So, yeah, I agree with John. Look, February, I would say February 1 all the way to the end of the regular season, that was the development and surge that we've been hoping to see from Mobley, and it's a really good sign that he's on his way.
Yeah, I really think when you look back at this season, it's going to be hard not to think, oh, that was Mitchell's first year with the Cavs. The team was really young. He scored 71 points, and they had home court advantage. If you're kind of like, if this Cavs season had a Twitter bio, it would be something to that effect, something about their defense, about how the team is so young. And this is Mobley's second year, Garland's third. It's a lot of a really young core. I still think, even though we don't have a lot of draft picks, that most GMs, teams in the league look at the Cavs and say, man, that's an organization I wish we could be at, or we should strive to get to. And I think hitting those regular season expectations, it's a good feeling, right? You look back and say, okay, this is the start of either this season or window of this franchise of stability and success and playoffs, and at least chances and shots of a deep run in the playoffs. And this is the first year of that. And it's also kind of hard not to have one eye on the Jazz as well. And I don't want to labor on the Jazz a lot because, I would do the trade 100 times out of 100, but to see their success and Mark and his development and the rookie that they got from us from Kansas, who seemed to be kind of coming on, it's just interesting. I look back at this season. I think I start with D Mitch and how he has, like you said, seamlessly fit into the team. I look at Mobley and how we are just slowly watching him ascend this, like, to his peak. He hasn't reached his peak, but he's like slowly kind of ascending and getting there. You feel like at a natural clip. Their defense as well, but I think that circles back personally just to Okoro, who put the work in, who has taken strides. I don't think he's like the byline of the season. I'm not trying to be like that guy, but I think the past couple games where he hasn't played I think they felt his absence on the defensive end.
They missed his energy.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. And so I think maybe just a final sentence of the Wikipedia article, and Isaac Okoro improved and had a decent year might be worth an editor's note, John. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. Isaac Okoro, to me, long-term, is he still your wing-dependent player? I don't think he is. But did he improve? Sure, he improved. Did he hit some big shots? He did, especially in New York, and the Cavs were playing the Knicks. And his defense got a lot better, even though it was already good then. His advanced offensive numbers, metrics still dropped. But I mean, I think Isaac Okoro is who he is. But I also think the one thing that we've kind of maybe overlooked to him, and I'll defend him on this, is his leadership and selflessness and his willingness to do whatever he can with the team. It's very similar to Caris LeVert as well. And we didn't talk about him either. Caris LeVert's a guy who had some struggles and, at times can be a streaky shooter, a streaky player, maybe gets into hero ball too much. But at times when they need him the most to perform, he's performed by, drawing defensive in and dishing it out, or being that second or third option if Garland or Mitchell aren't on the floor. Both of those guys, I think, have taken steps in the positive direction. But if we're looking long term, and I don't want to get doom and gloom, I still don't think they're both the pieces that this team needs in a consistent rate long term.
Yeah, I would agree
with that turn, John. You always have to just
I'm giving
like
you
a
both,
fish.
I'm not talking both sides out my mouth, but I'm going to give credit when credit's due. But I'm also going to tell you like how I see it. So
I don't think they're the long term answers. I really like what LeVert did the second half. I think same time Mobley came on was when LeVert came on, right around that February 1st mark.
Mm-hmm.
I think that both of those guys are probably bench guys on a championship contender. They're not your start unless all of a sudden Mitchell and Garland together are both just, and it could happen where they're like excuse me, Kyrie and Luka all of a sudden. But you know what I mean? Those kind of A-level superstars. And I think Mitchell's probably there. Garland is not. But I think if you're going to have Isaac Okoro as your long-term starter because he's undersized at that position, he doesn't offer any consistent offense. I really think they need, and I think that they think they need 6'7", 6'9", kind of wing shooter who's going to be a consistent knockdown guy next to Mitchell and Garland for the long term. But right now, look, you still have Isaac Okoro there. You have LeVert. You feel comfortable because they've played very well in the second half of the season. And so, we don't know that that's the situation right now. Maybe those guys will be the long-term answer, but it just doesn't look like it right now in terms of a starting small forward. But again, you got to give it time and let it play out.
I think another important note that we have to mention with the 23-24 NBA season, the Cavs moved on from Kevin Love, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look back at this.
It's only 22-23.
22-23. Yes, thank you.
Right.
You got to keep me honest. Sam. We've moved on from Kevin Love, and was on the Cavs since 2012, 14. See, keep me honest, man. See, it's like I host a Cavs podcast or something. I do have notes for other parts of the episode, not the Kevin Love portion. But, I mean, we have to mention, we talked about it ad nauseum at the live show in your basement, John, about Kevin Love's legacy. That was and I still get people mentioning that episode to me about just how fun and like their own opinions and thoughts. It was great. But moving on from Kevin Love is an end of a chapter in Cavs history. And it's so great that in that same year, we're able to make the playoffs with home court advantage, John.
Yeah. And you know what? We had a concern with the buyout with Kevin Love. What are you going to do if you face them in the playoffs and he starts hitting shots against you? Well, I guess that concern is still real, but is it going to happen? We'll see. Miami's in the play-in game. They've got the Hawks. Cavs are locked in the 4 seed. They have the Knicks. cross the bridge when you get to it. But I think we'd be lying here if we thought that he would have a major impact with Miami in the 20-some games he has played with them since being bought out. And he really hasn't. I mean, he had been starting. He'd been starting games, but hadn't been finishing games with the Heat. And he had got the minutes early on, had a couple games of double figures. I think he had 4 games in double figures, 4 or 5 or so. But and if he wasn't happy, he wanted the playing time. I think the Danny Green move really set him over the edge, because you bring in some guy in Danny Green, a veteran who coming off of knee injury, and you sign him off the street after he got bought out by Memphis, and you bring him in here and he plays in Philly. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. You weren't getting playing time in general. You had to leave. I respect his decision. I respect the Cavs for handling it the way they did. Now, Danny Green really hasn't played much either. But trying to break in the Cavs rotation was going to be hard no matter who it was. So in a way, you had to make a move. We talked about in previous podcasts. Cavs made this move for one reason, and that was they didn't want to deal with any other potential drama that could come with an unhappy Kevin Love. I don't think they'd ever admit that, but let's just be real. That's what they did. And you know what? It was a good move. And Kevin got minutes. And for him, I hope he performs well in Miami. And if the Cavs do somehow face the Heat, I hope he doesn't perform well against them.
Yeah, Sam, if you want to go back and listen to that episode, it's great. It's on the feed. It's incredible. Check that out. It's live from John Sabol's basement. Also, I think another thing to note that's important is, to be honest, the Cavs were relatively healthy this season. Really no major injuries that really set the team back. I know Garland was out just a couple games. Mitchell had a couple groin issues, but I really feel like we're heading into the playoffs, Sam, full force. I know Okoro's been out nursing that. Is it bone bruise?
And a knee. Yep.
But I mean, thankfully, no major injuries for the Cavs here this year, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been a scary thing. It impacted them a lot last season when you had Jared Allen out for the play-in game. The first play-in game probably wasn't really totally healthy for the second game, but they've been fortunate in that area. And then when guys have been out, like Okoro, Levert's played pretty well, and other guys have stepped up. Mobley stepped up a lot when Allen was out. That's almost kind of when he really took his big step. So yeah, they've been fortunate in that area, and that counts for a lot. You're able to withstand the rigors of an 82 game regular season to be healthy at the end when the playoffs are here.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about Mobley's chance to kind of steal Defensive Player of the Year, maybe the Donovan Mitchell, if he's going to land on an all NBA team, and other possible awards here for the 22-23 Cavs season. Stick around, Cavs on the break. We'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. It's John Tellage from the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast. Be sure to hop on with us to follow all the dramatic developments of the reigning American League Central Division champions. From game analysis to interviews to keeping tabs on who could be the next breakout star. We'll have that and much, much more right here. It's the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe here and join the fun.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tyrus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tyvis, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sabol.
And I'm Scott Sabol, and we're hosts of the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it. Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary. And I'm Jason. Opening cards as a kid, no matter what was in the pack, you always had that stick of chewing gum. Well, it turns out Gary and I opened up a box of 86 Tops last year, and let me tell you, the chewing gum does not age well.
Join us on the Ball Card Show,
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
All right, we are back. Cavs on the break here. Sam Amico, John Sabol, having a great time, just reliving, recapping the season for the Cavs. And right kind of as we were ramping up to record, there's been a kind of a push for Evan Mobley to maybe surprisingly sneak in and steal Defensive Player of the Year. Sam, does this have some legs to it?
I don't know who else would be in the running. Maybe Sabol would know that.
So it's between Brooke Lopez would be an option, Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, Draymond, I think, is going to get some votes, but those are kind of the big players here.
Out of the guys you listed, I would choose Mobley, at least for the way he's played, especially in the second half of the season. Just has been such a force near the basket. And you talk about, if you want to talk about defensive, you always say, well, the MVP has to be from a team that's really doing well. Okay, well, the Cavs were the top defensive team in the NBA for most of the year. Who was their main anchor? Allen and Mobley, So, I mean, I would certainly put him in that conversation.
I think the other major player would be Jaren Jackson Jr. And his whole kind of thing is he hasn't played as many minutes as Mobley has. Mobley's played the sixth most minutes of all the Defensive Player of the Year candidates here. And so you look at that along with his ranking in the contested shots. He's third, contested 3-point field goal percentage. He's first, sixth in blocks, and his team is first in defense. And you kind of look and say, well, how is that possible? And there you go. The knock against Mobley is having Allen there behind him, whereas Jaren Jackson and Brooke Lopez obviously has Giannis. But yeah, John, I mean, we have a Defensive Player of the Year here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough because I think Jaren Jackson Jr. had a tremendous year despite playing fewer minutes, like you said, but also starting the year later. I think he made his debut, November 15th?
Yeah, he was injured. Yeah,
he was injured, but he really came on strong. I think his defensive rating was one of the highest. But I think two guys that we're overlooking here in this potential race, it could be Bam Adebayo of Miami. Yeah, and maybe Nick Claxton of Brooklyn. Those two guys could be there. But why isn't Jared Allen in any of these talks? Because
I was going to say Allen should be there too if you're going to mention these other guys.
If you're going to mention those two, because I've heard Claxton and Bam Adebayo's name out there, why isn't Jared Allen getting any pub for this? Because I would argue when it comes to defense, I mean, he's just as valuable as Evan Mobley in the middle. I think Evan Mobley's had a phenomenal defensive year, but when Jared Allen was out for those few games, Cavs were really exposed, especially in the paint. And I mean, why that isn't being talked about, I couldn't tell you. Maybe I don't have his advanced metrics in front of me. Maybe they don't show that. But when you have the eye test and it shows you the impact that person makes, that's a big deal. And I think Jared Allen is being overlooked in that category.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if he and Mobley switch places and Mobley was the one that was out for those couple games, if it would look similar, or worse or better. Hopefully you don't see that, but I think too, Mobley's like a sexy pick, right? He's second year in the league. He's young. He has a lot of people who believe in him as we do. And so I think there's kind of this like, people are always looking, John, and you know this, to crown the next big thing.
And that's a great point, Chase. And you think about this way too. Evan Mobley missed out on Rookie of the Year honors last year from Scotty Barnes.
Yeah.
And if you want to talk about who had the better sophomore season, if you will, it was Evan Mobley by far.
Yeah.
There's a debate there that he should have won the Rookie of the Year. I think we've all agreed that he probably should have, even though maybe some of the numbers.
If he hadn't got injured, he probably would have.
Yeah, the numbers skewed more to Scotty Barnes, and which I tend to kind of agree with, and I don't necessarily.
But the big push, that's because they made the playoffs.
Exactly.
And if he hadn't hurt his thumb, if Mobley hasn't hurt his thumb, and the Cavs are in the
it's back to what Sam just said. It's like you're always looking for somebody that's helping you do well if you're in the playoffs. That's actually been like, this is my biggest beef with NBA, MLB, and NFL voting, is that a lot of these votings for these, MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, whatever it is, they take into account a lot of it with what you did for your team in the postseason. And that's just not always the case. I get it. I mean, you can go back to the 1998 home run chase with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, and Sosa got the MVP over McGwire because the Cubs got the playoffs, yet McGwire had the better year with the home runs and everything. So, I mean, I think awards, especially in this day and age, especially in the NBA, I'll probably get a lot of people upset with me about this, but the awards in the NBA in the last few years, probably in the last 5 or 6 years, don't mean much. And they have not meant much probably since the 90s, just because of the load management and the voters and the writers. Sam, you can echo on this. I go back to those 17, 18 years with LeBron, and you're giving awards to Harden and Westbrook because of their phenomenal stats, which LeBron was still the MVP, because if you took him off those Cavs team, what does the word valuable mean? Most valuable.
Yeah.
Cavs aren't even sniffing the playoffs. That's why I know I'm getting on my soapbox here, but I'll continue for one more moment, Chase.
No,
that's why
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
That's why the NBA, in my opinion, should have 2 awards: MVP, most valuable player, and MOP, most outstanding player. Give that award to someone who had the most jaw-dropping triple-double, 50-point, multiple 50-point games, whatever, a la Harden, Westbrook, and then valuable goes to someone that actually deserves it. The awards in general have changed a lot, and it doesn't mean as much anymore. I don't want to say it's not a joke. It just doesn't. They don't have that much oomph as they used to. Yeah. It's just not NBA too. A lot of other sports, it's mostly in the NBA, in my opinion. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I think that. Well, first of all, I think that they did a good job of putting that rule in moving forward, that you have to play at least 65 games.
I would agree.
Yeah. You see Durant's response to that. Durant
said you're going to have scrubs.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Well, I mean, okay, not that Julius Randle was an MVP candidate, but here's a guy who played 77 straight games and started 77 straight games. He has an ankle injury now, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, at some point, given that they're playing the Cavs. But I think that there are a lot of guys who are very good who do play full seasons. LeBron generally plays a lot. Now he's getting up there in age. Obviously, he's probably not going to survive as many 65 game seasons as he used to. But, I disagree with Draymond. I think that players will cut down on load management, mostly because the players aren't responsible for it, but they'll fight for their right to play, and teams will be more willing to let them play as opposed to, we're going to rest them 30 games this year or whatever, like Kawhi Leonard. I don't think that you'll run into that problem. I think that you're going to get a bona fide most valuable player. And I think it's a great rule. It's a great rule to put into place because it's going to put pressure on the teams to let their guys play. But I'm with you, John. I don't think that the MVP over the past at least decade has gone to the best player. I mean, for the past decade, say from 2010 to 2018 anyway, it could have been LeBron or Curry every year. But how often did they actually win it? I mean, sure. So yeah, it's been kind of skewed lately.
So John, who's your MVP for this year?
Great question. I'm glad you asked me.
Yeah.
I'm going Joel Embiid.
Okay. Refuses to give Joker 3 straight. He's like, nope, he's not doing it. If it's not good enough for Braun, it's not good enough for Jokic.
No, and see, here's my thing on that. It's funny because I know you say it jokingly, but some people voters will actually think
100%. 100%.
You know, well, we didn't give that to Kobe or LeBron or what. And that's silly.
Jordan, I don't think did it, right? He didn't get 3 MVPs, did he?
In a row?
Yeah, I don't think he did.
You know what?
I know Bird did. I don't know that Magic ever did. I know that Bird did, and
because they gave it to
Jordan. Never did 3 in a row.
Because they gave it to someone, Barkley, I think, because they didn't want him to happen. That's why LeBron didn't get 3 in a row.
I think, and
then Karl Malone won it in like '98. That was the BS one that Jordan should have won. They're like, we're not doing
stole
this.
The ball from him in the finals.
If we're gonna talk about awards in sports that are a sham, Chase, you know how to really get me going. I have to go back to the 1995 American League MVP voting.
Oh, geez.
When Albert Bell got completely hosed from the baseball writers, and they gave it to Mo Vaughn. When Bell was the first, and by the way, still the first player in baseball history to hit 50 homers and 50 doubles in a season, and had numbers that were better. But those crotchety old baseball writers back then held Bell held his attitude and the way he treated the media against him and gave it to Mo Vaughn, which is a sham. It's a joke. Yeah. But I digress.
All right, so you have Embiid.
So I got Embiid, not because I don't want 3 in a row at Jokic. I think Embiid's played a tougher schedule in the East. The East is way better in this, obviously with the Cavs, the Sixers, but with like facing against Boston and Milwaukee. West
he dominates us.
He does. Jared Allen, that's his kryptonite. Jared Allen's kryptonite is Joel Embiid. But I think the Nuggets are obviously the best team in the West. He just didn't have enough competition, more individual stats, but I just don't think he was tested enough to show me that he was the most valuable player. I don't know. I think people could say, well, you go to your LeBron argument, you take him off the Nuggets. Well, who do you have? Well, you still got Jamal Murray there. You still got Michael Porter Jr. there. You still got Aaron Gordon. So that argument doesn't hold any water. But when you look down at Jokic's numbers, there out of the last 3 years, his points are the lowest. And his rebounds are the second lowest. His efficiency is about average compared to the 3. So I got Embiid.
Sam, do you have a vote?
Giannis Antetokounmpo. I do not have a vote any longer. No, they took it away after I voted Chase Smith in the fill-in.
I did get something in the mail. I was kind of curious as to what happened then. All right, so it's nice to know it was you.
I haven't had one since I worked at Fox. Which I think by last year there would have been 2017. But to me that it's so hard to say with any kind of, oh yeah, it's this guy for sure. It's very rare that you can do that. I would struggle to vote between Embiid and Antetokounmpo, and Jokic would certainly be in that conversation, but I think it's got to go to one of those two. And I think going back to John's point, maybe you give it to Embiid because you take him off that team. They're probably, if they're really fortunate, they'll be in the play-in tournament. So
well, you just made Giannis's point.
Well, Giannis, I think the Bucks at least are probably, would be in the play-in tournament, would be a 6 or 7 seed somewhere in that range. But the Sixers and Embiid to me, may have deserved it last year.
Yeah, I agree.
So I just think you have to take into account, and I think you do, if you're going to look to give a guy an edge and everything else being equal, take in, to account his entire body of work. And he's certainly an NBA MVP type talent. So
the Giannis argument, I completely will listen to, and I'm like kind of right neck and neck. I think I lean it a little bit more to Embiid just because his numbers are a little bit better. Played in a little bit more games than Giannis. Now, granted, Giannis was hurt. Yeah. You can't really. I mean, I would listen to that. I agree. I think Jokic is third, but the Sixers without Embiid, just because of his 33 points a game and what he can do to the interior and the defense, because Giannis plays a little bit more outside on the perimeter. I don't see Philly being a top 4 team, 5 team.
No.
I see them in a play-in game, maybe best case scenario.
Yep. Yeah. I go Giannis 1, Joker 2, Embiid 3. And that would have been like that would have been similar to my voting last year. I don't know.
Okoro 4.
Okoro 4. And then myself 5. I vote for myself. I don't have any shame. Hey, one more. This isn't MVP, but this might even be a better barometer of the best players in the league. All NBA. From what I've been reading and seeing and looking, it seems like Donovan Mitchell is going to make at least an NBA third team. Sam, what are the rumblings on Donovan Mitchell?
I think he should be second. I think Mitchell should be. I think he. I mean, could you put him on the first? Who am I?
Okay, so the guards. This is the issue with the guards of the All NBA. Here are the guards. I'm just going to list names that would be on the guards. You're looking at Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard, and De'Aaron Fox.
Okay. Well, you got to go Steph Curry on the first team, because the Warriors looked more like a one-man team than ever this season with him.
But I would say, hold on real quick, Sam, you still give him first team just based off of the name and not so much because of his injury? Like, don't you think he's got to get penalized a little bit because of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, how much time did he miss? How many games did he play?
I'll get that number for you right here.
This is Cavs on the break, Sam, not Warriors bin LeBay. Sorry, buddy.
They probably won't have me on there.
Warriors on the bay. I'm about to.
Steph Curry played in 56 games.
Thanks, Sabol. Sabol's on. He's got the internet.
I wouldn't put Steph Curry.
You could make an argument that he's second team then. I mean,
yeah,
but
I would agree.
They look like a different team when he's out. That's for sure. They're not contenders without him. With him, even though they finished 6th in the West, they're still very much contenders, and it's all because of him. So
can we agree that maybe Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is maybe the first team? Because we're looking at the best
is he
guards.
Better than Mitchell?
See, that's where I disagree. A lot of people have put Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in first team, and he may very well win and get that nod. But who's a better player?
I think Mitchell at this point in their careers is the better player. I think of everybody you named, and I know Lillard had a nice year, no doubt about that. But I think you talk about Donovan Mitchell coming to a new situation, averaging a career high in points, averaging career high shooting percentage, and the Cavs moved up 3 or 4 spots in the standings. I'd have a hard time leaving him off the first team.
So he's the only guard in the East of those names that I mentioned.
Yeah, I'd have a hard time. I mean, any of those names are their first team. You can't say no way, but I just think of those names that you mentioned, Chase. I would put him on the first team. I'd probably put him and Curry on. And I know Doncic was fantastic, but again,
I think Mitchell gets second. I think Luka and Shai, Luka and SJ would be one. I think, just because of no one expected the Thunder to be this good or to play this well. And I think he is, to borrow Jeremy's words, the straw that stirs the drink. And I think just because of that, he will.
Where would the Cavs be without Mitchell?
Play in.
Yeah.
Well, under that scenario, you still have a Colin Sexton and a Lauri Markkanen.
No. I'm just saying if Mitchell didn't play this year,
play it. No, we know the answer to that. And so, I think second team. I mean, my goodness, second team. I think that's. I just think that's where he'll be. I think him and Curry might be at 2, and we'll see Dame and De'Aaron Fox or a Trae Young.
So Chase, think about this, and I agree with you. I think the voters will give it to SJA because of what the Thunder did, and no one expected them to be where they are.
Yeah,
just because of that reason. And he had a great year. And I would put, and this is not Homer and me, but I'd put Donovan over him only because of Donovan's year. And you pull Donovan off this team, the Cavs are on the play-in team.
Yeah.
But I won't be upset if he doesn't get the first team All-NBA. I think when it's all said and done, Donovan Mitchell will be a second team along with probably like a Steph Curry. The two guards that get that spot will probably be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and probably Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
Now, put this in perspective, though, for you. Becoming an All-NBA team is really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, LeBron's made it look really easy.
Yep.
Steph Curry has made it look really easy.
Yeah.
Here's a trivia question that I'm going to ask you, Chase. Sam knows the answer to this, so Sam's not going to answer it. Can you name the other Cavalier that has become an All-NBA team other than LeBron James in the history of the franchise?
Kyrie would be my
Kyrie did not get first team All-NBA with the Cavs.
Ooh, okay. So let me think. Another Cavs player who's made all team. Sean
Sam,
Kemp.
you know the answer to this question, don't you?
Is it Sean Kemp, third team?
I know. I'm talking first team.
First team as a member of the Cavs.
First team.
I thought we were talking just like any all NBA teams.
Yeah, my bad. Yes, first team.
Okay, so those might have been right answers in my mind.
Oh, so
I'm trying to save face here. So the other Cavs player, first team. I
believe there's only one that's ever gotten a first team other than LeBron.
I'm gonna say Price or Doherty.
Sam, do you know the answer to this question?
That would be my guess. Would be Price or Doherty.
What is it?
Weakest link.
Price.
Final answer.
Mark Price. No, he wouldn't have been because there's too many guards during his era that were too good. Do you know the answer, John?
I do. Oh, I thought you guys were still thinking. Okay.
No.
So the answer to this question, Mark Price.
Okay.
So it was 92-93. Listen to this. Price was on the first team NBA one time in his career, that 92-93 season, with Barkley, Malone, Olajuwon, and Jordan. The guards that Price beat out that year.
Stockton.
Magic.
Well, was Magic around still?
He was around, but he did not get votes. Stockton, Tim Hardaway, Joe Dumars, and the late great Drazen Petrovic.
Wow.
Hey,
that's something else.
Kyrie's been on 4 All NBA teams, by the way. Never first team.
Never first.
Yeah.
I think Sean Kemp has 2.
Sean Kemp, I think, was a second teamer in the 90s.
But
I don't think but not for the Cavs. No, I don't.
He wasn't third team that first year. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he.
There's nothing more boring than podcast silence while hosts look up answers on YouTube or Google.
Hey,
all right. Well,
listen to this trivia.
Okay.
So the Cavs and the Knicks have met 3 times in the playoffs.
Oh yeah, I retweeted this, I think.
And the Knicks hold an 8-1 advantage
in
games played. They've won each series, and the first time they met, John Sabol will appreciate this. Walt Frazier, the Knicks great, was with the Cavs.
Mm-hmm.
And so were Campy Russell and Austin Carr. Now all 3 of them are going to be in Cleveland on Saturday because they work for their respective broadcast crews. Yep. And the Knicks won that series 2-0 because it was best of 3 back then.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that would have been what, 1970?
78.
8? Yeah.
All right. So love some of that discussion. We're going to talk all about the Knicks on Thursday. So Sam, keep that Nick intrigue alive and well, and we'll make sure to tap into that on Thursday. Garland, most improved, or are those all the end of season awards we're looking at here for this young Cavs team?
Most improved?
I'm not sure if he'll win, but you think he'll get any?
No, I don't think he'll get anything. And
JB,
I don't think he should.
Coach of the year?
I think I think JB.
Mike Brown's coach of the year. That's going to be decided.
Mike Brown is funny. I was in a group text with a couple of buddies today, and we were talking about that. Mike Brown has to win coach of the year. I mean, no one saw. We talked about the Thunder. No one saw the Sacramento Kings being irrelevant. JB probably will get some votes, but that award should definitely go to Mike Brown.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm ready for my surprise. I have a surprise for you guys. We're talking about awards. Can we do a Junkyard Dog Year in Review award? Because listen, shout out to Greg Martin, one of our very best breakers. Listen to this. He sent me this incredible breakdown, an Excel sheet with advanced analytics and everything of every one of our episodes, breaking down who won, what we talked about, and who got other votes. All right, you guys ready for this? I've never seen it. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
Can I ask a question before you go down the numbers?
Yeah.
How many awards did we give out total?
We gave out 1, 2, 3, 11.
Oh, geez.
And we gave out 16 Junkyard Dog Awards. So shouts to Greg Martin, one of the best breakers there is. Greg, thank you so much. I'm going to run it down for you right here. All right, here we go. And the surprise is tonight I'm going to compile all of our Junkyard Dog Award conversations from every episode and put it in one podcast. So I'm going to release that after this podcast. And so they're going to hear all of our ramblings at the very end of every episode, all season long, into this Junkyard Dog Award carousel. It's going to be a lot of fun. Wow. But here is the final tally of our 22-23 Junkyard Dog Award winners. We have a 3-way tie for people who won 1. All right, here we go. Tim Alcorn, he won 1, batting 1,000. Michael Regai, also batting 1,000. That was his legendary choreo episode, I think.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah, I think that was a good one.
And then we gave it to the Breakers. The Breakers won.
Oh yeah,
1.
Yeah.
The Breakers won 1. I think that was the first episode of the Breakers. We talked about it.
Yep.
We have 2 people tied with 4. All right, 2 people are tied with 4 awards. All right. John Sabol and Sam Amico, you both won 4 Junkyard Dog Awards this year. That means the winner with 5 Junkyard Dog Awards is Jeremy and Akron, the one, the only JIA.
Wow. How many? Wow. So you've won 0?
I have awarded yourself 0.
Wait, how did we not award you any?
There were 6 episodes where there was not an award, and every one of those episodes was hosted by John Sabol.
So it's on me.
So we
I'm just a messer. This is Greg Martin. Take it up with Greg Martin. No, I'm just messing.
Well, I gotta say, some of those episodes are probably one-on-one with Sam, one-on-one with you, or one-on-one with Jeremy.
Yeah,
hey, that's fair.
Question.
That's fair.
I think we had I think we got to read the fine print that says in order to issue a Junkyard Dog Award, you need to at least have 3 members of the squad.
No, I defaulted in my one-on-ones with Sam, and I gave it to Sam.
Really?
I did.
Man, Sam, you must have had a bad day, and Chase was like, "Here you go, buddy." I never knew we were doing that. I didn't. That's like basically a participation trophy.
I think all of my awards were done via begging. Or
no, your whole play is I've never won 1. You just kept that going the whole season, even though you kept a tally. You have you probably made yourself a trophy.
Now, Chase, I do have a legit excuse besides what I just said as to why I couldn't hand out more. Is because my physical Junkyard Dog Award you took.
I took by accident, but that was at the end of the season. Johnny, there's nothing up to. It's okay. No one said you had to do it. It's just something fun that we do. But I thought that was a lot of fun. Greg, thank you so much for doing that.
Greg, awesome job,
Can we give it to Greg?
Yes.
Greg deserves it.
Greg Martin gets the award. Absolutely. I love that. The final award of the season goes to Greg Martin. And just like that, he has more than me. Greg, congratulations. But hey, we got to give props to Jeremy and Akron. You know, I introduced him as the man, the myth, the legend. His Twitter, personality is bigger than life. Maybe not so much now. He's, here and just keep, man. I mean, he came firing on all cylinders. It's just he brings his own flavor. So Jeremy, good job by you, man. 5 Junkyard Dog Awards. It's pretty impressive.
Hey, you know what? First off, Greg, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us every week. We really appreciate that. To go back and keep tally is some next level stuff. You deserve this post regular season award, Junkyard Dog Award. So hats off to you. And the JIA deserves it. You know what's funny? Before you even started rattling that off, and when I asked you how many we had, I was going to say JIA.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could give it to him every time, frankly.
He did it. He did it. Well, now 5 of 17 because Greg got number 16. I thought that was a lot of fun.
That was cool.
It's always, we might not do it next year. We might. I don't know. It's a lot of fun. And so, like I said, I'm going to be putting all of those mashups together in one episode. I'm going to drop hopefully tonight. But Greg, congratulations. This week's Junkyard Dog Award winner goes out to Greg Martin. Well, that does it for this episode of Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Shouts to the Press Play podcast now for making this possible. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Cavs on the Break. We always follow back. You can follow Sam on Twitter at Amico Hoops. Get all of his works and writings at hoopswire.com. You can follow John on Twitter at John_Sabol. Sam, John, final thoughts on the season? Where you at, Sam?
I look forward to Thursday talking about this series because I have a lot of thoughts about it before we go in.
I do too.
So,
Sam, we differ. We have different thoughts. We're at a different place.
A little bit. I don't think extremely different, like usual. Usual, we're at two different ends. Here, I think that we'll be able to meet in the middle.
Oh, hopefully. John, final thoughts on the season, man?
I have a prediction. I've stewed with this now, and it may change between now and our next recording. And by the time we hit tip-off on Saturday, I will tease you with this, that the former Cavaliers player that I was talking to today for a story that Fox 8 later this week.
Ooh. Are you going to put it out there?
Gave me a prediction.
Oh, this special guest
this week.
Wow.
Check it out. Sabol Brothers on the baseline.
No, it's not a podcast related. It's only on Fox 8.
Oh, well, hopefully we get him on the pod as one of our special guests for an episode. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'm working on that. The time constraints on his end just didn't work out really well, but we'll make it work.
We'll all good. John, Sabol, it's always a pleasure. My life is always better when I talk to you guys. Thank you so much. I could talk ball and everything about you guys all the time. Appreciate it. We'll talk again on Thursday. But for now, Mike Breen, take us out.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.